Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to 1% Better, where we take a look at hidden stories in sport. I'm Xylon, and this is the point where I ask my partner in crime here a medical question, Dr. David Lipman. I don't have a question for you this week, but it is a
What a
follow-up.
surprise, mate. What a surprise. Didn't do your homework. You had one job, mate.
Well, actually, you took it over for me last week and you suggested I have the medical question I should ask you. And it was a very interesting one. You told me that it was possible for a male to return a pregnancy test as positive, right?
Yes, and this speaks to first principles understandings, right? So a pregnancy test doesn't tell you you're pregnant. It tells you that there is high levels of human chorionic gonadotrophin, HCG, right? Which is high in pregnancy, right? But it is also high in other cases, which is what we're getting to here.
So I've got a very newsworthy story for you. The rider currently at the time of recording leading the Vuelta a España. That's the Tour of Spain. That's the third biggest professional bike race in the world after the Tour de France and the Giro d'Italia. Well, in May 2022, he's Norwegian, Torsten Train, and I would be surprised if you don't know him because you know all of the Norwegians, the Norwegian method. But in May 2022, he tested positive for the aforementioned HCG hormone, which which can indicate doping, but also, as you mentioned last week, testicular cancer. And unfortunately for him, it did reveal a tumor, which was removed in June 2022, confirming a 15 millimeter cancerous tumor. Luckily, he didn't need chemotherapy. But yeah, and then 2 months later, he returned to racing. So I found that very, very interesting that this just, I don't know, I know our devices are listening to us because after you spoke about this came up as a news feed, as newsworthy after we talked about it, and I found it very interesting.
That or it just knows that you're interested in cycling, mate. And so, that's cycling news.
Yeah, but it was so relevant, man. And I guess, yeah, he's leading the Volta, so it's in the news at the moment. So there you go. I think that's way more interesting than me asking you a medical question. I think that's way more. I mean, I went to go look up the story. I researched it. I think that's way more interesting than a medical question.
I mean, I sent it to you. I don't know how much you looked it up, but all of that said, it is if we're looking for proof that I'm a doctor, or that I was a doctor, maybe that's it.
Taking the credits again. Someone who should be taking the credits on this podcast is Precision Fuel and Hydration for supporting us. We do have a discount code, 15% off on your first purchase. We can boldly, unapologetically say best nutrition partners in the game, man. And if you followed UTMB, you would see the success they had there. Did you see what the athletes achieved?
Yeah, I mean, they probably UTMB is a tough one because there's such a high DNF rate, and it had a few. Some of their big hopes probably didn't make it, but I mean, the best result was Martina Milnarczyk. So she won the CCC in a pretty exciting race that we'll touch on later. But she's got a pretty interesting story. So she's an ex ballerina, which
Oh.
is interesting to me. And but I also
Would
saw
that
her
help her
case
running
study.
in any way?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, so certainly from a foot strength perspective, right? Ballerinas have got very strong feet, and I think that's helpful. And strong lower limbs in general. So I think it's helpful and are very agile. She talked about the race to the finish line and said she was worried about Sylvia Nordska, who ended up coming second because Sylvia passed her, and she said, "Oh, Sylvia was better downhill." And that's interesting because usually, if you're more agile and more technically savvy, you sort of can go downhill faster. So maybe it was relative rather than her saying she's bad at it. But I would have anticipated her being quite good at downhills as a result of this. Obviously, it takes practice, but she has the general abilities required. But yeah, it was cool. She hit 93 grams an hour of carbs, and she hit 573 milliliters per hour of fluid. So I would have thought her fluid would have been a bit higher, but obviously didn't need it. She won the race and was fine on the finish line. But she used a mix of gels and chews as well as the PF 1000 electrolyte. So if you're interested in any of this, there is a discount code. There's also a link to the fuel and hydration planner in our show notes. And yeah, go check it out.
I actually had such a good session with my bio at the gym this morning, and afterwards I hopped into the steam room. So I've been sipping on 1500 precision fuel hydration, 1500 electrolytes all morning to replenish, man. I'm so excited. I must tell you, I shouldn't be excited because I've been in a lot of pain the last few weeks. But I mentioned to you on our planning call this week that I'm excited. I've started a new program which basically it's about 15 minutes a day, and it basically tells me that your core muscles and breathing are interrelated, and the breathing pattern plays a role in muscular balance supporting the spine. And I think that has played a big role in the back problems I've had the last few years, because both my physiotherapist and my biokinetist, one of the first things when I started working with them, they mentioned the flaring of my ribs, and basically how I can't breathe. So just like you a couple of weeks ago were teaching me how to tie shoelaces, they've been teaching me to breathe. All these basic things that humans should know how to do that I don't know how to do yet. But does that sound familiar to you? Does that sound accurate to you?
So there's a couple of things. The first thing is people misunderstand what the core is. They think it's abs and those sort of things. The core is generally deep muscles, one of which, generally when physios explain the core, they talk about a jam jar or something like this. The bottom of the jam jar being your pelvic floor. So, generally when people are trying to get you to activate your transversus abdominis and your pelvic floor, they'll say things like try and cut your pee off midstream, or do that as a motion, or think about trying to do that. That's how to sort of activate it, so to speak. They will also talk about the bits around the jam jar, which is things like multifidus, etc. And
It's like a
then
corset,
yes, yep.
almost.
And then the last thing, and of course, it's another not a bad analogy as well. But the jam jar has a top and a bottom, and then the top of the jam jar is your diaphragm, right? And this is part of breathing. So then it's about how do we breathe, and how does that diaphragm work? Now, breathing patterns can change as a result of pain. So the question is, did you breathe the way you're breathing and then get a back problem, or did you get a back problem and then start breathing the way you're breathing, or both? Did it make it worse? So
Interesting.
yeah, there's all those factors. But certainly when we think about breath and breathing, it's very related to our nervous system and things like anxiety, and that will change pain as well. Right. So if you've ever watched a kid, like very young kids getting their first injections, they actually don't cry. If you're good at it, they don't cry because it doesn't really hurt that much. And if you distract them particularly, they don't cry. But once they know what's coming, when they're like 2 or 3 and you give them an injection, they know what's coming, and then it's a real problem. So it speaks to the role of
Fascinating.
anxiety in pain as well.
Fascinating. I can concur with that, and not totally unrelated. I was at a family gathering yesterday, and I arrived there in zero pain. And my aunt and uncle asked me how I was doing, and I
Yesterday or
explained
2 days ago, mate?
yesterday.
On,
And
on a Monday. Tough work life you've got.
oh, it was Monday evening. My little nephew was born on Spring Day, 1st of September. So we went around for some cake. But anyway,
Okay.
my aunt and uncle were asking me how I was doing, and I explained to them my back problems. And I had zero pain since I got there. But when I was telling them about it, immediately nervous system kicked in. I had pain instantly. So that's also going to be a journey, is like trying to unlearn that. But I'm excited about this, the breathing patterns, and trying to do this every day. I've signed it to a program, and every single day they send you an email of what to do. So far, day one was breathing into your lower back. So on your inhale, breathing into your lower back, and a couple of times a day on your exhale, trying to exhale all the oxygen, all the air that's left in your lungs out of it, because it activates the core. You need the core to do that. And the second thing was lying in a bridge position, but getting the back of the ribs, the back of the rib cage engaged with the floor. So like we were babies. So like basically trying to go back to, and then breathing into the lower back so that your breathing pattern is restored the way it should be. So TBC, we'll see how it's going. I've been in a lot of pain. I'm excited about this. Had a good session with the bio this morning. The gym had all brand new equipment, so we were trying some stuff out. My legs are going to be so sore tomorrow. I won't be able to walk tomorrow. But enough about me. How are you doing? I'm hearing more volume on the run.
Yeah, a bit more volume recently. I mean, Sham helps, right? Because you're always running a bit longer. Big track session helps with Andy below from Precision Fuel and Hydration. So there's certainly that. Planned for a relatively big one tomorrow with a friend here, future podcast guest Peter Tierney. But we'll see if that happens. It's raining, and I thought he was going to be fine because it's meant to be raining tomorrow morning. I thought he was going to be
Don't
fine.
talk to me about rain. Every time I've told you it's raining, I'm not going training, you've told me humans are waterproof.
I know. That's what I said to him. I literally sent him a text like, "Just confirming we're still on, mate, because I'm waterproof." He's Irish, so I figured he'd be. I figured he'd say to me, "Yeah, mate, we're all good." And he was like, "I don't know. Maybe I want to go on the treadmill." I was like, "All right, mate. Well, you let me know." So that's a nice one. That'll be a nice one tomorrow if I can get out for that, regardless of the weather. And then we'll see how we go from there.
We are supported by Stride running power meters. You mentioned that you were traveling. Please tell me you took your power meters with you. Were you a good ambassador for this podcast and for Stride and showing off our partners at UTMB?
Yeah, I travel with I just put them on the shoes I'm taking, and then if they're on a different pair of shoes, like they're super easy to release. So yeah, I just chucked them on the shoes and went for it and took them there. My critical power keeps going up, mate. I'm happy. Like it bottomed out, now it's starting to come up again. Went up again on Sunday. When I did a bit of a hot lap of Richmond Park, a small hot lap. So we're stoked to see that go up again. It's a bit intoxicating.
I can see our chief meme officer on this podcast, Spencer Louderback, already making a meme on that critical power. But if you'd like to check out Stride running power meters, we do have a link in the show notes down below. And as always, that link is directly related to our podcast. So that helps us a great deal. So go there and check them out. And on that note, man, I don't know what we're doing right at the moment. We've had an influx of listeners. It's probably not due to us. It's probably due to the amazing guests we've had on lately. So I've got to shout them out. But welcome to all new subscribers. We are just blown away that all the effort that we put into this little baby of us is being reciprocated, and we just appreciate that. And if you're listening and you haven't subscribed yet, please do so.
Yeah, and if you haven't rated the podcast, go and do that. Multiple platforms is fine. We don't mind. We're on YouTube. We're on Apple Podcasts, all of them. So go rate us there. We do appreciate it. And thanks to those people who are sharing the podcast. And again, that helps us as well. So if you like what we're doing, please do share, subscribe, rate the podcast. Would be super helpful. But just wanted to give a shout out to Laurie Renak, so loyal listener here. He ran his first 30K trail race the other day. He ran 2:49 and paced it really, really well, but did struggle a bit towards the end, he tells me. So he's pretty chuffed with that. And I was stoked to see it. So congratulations, Laurie.
Thanks to everyone who engages with us as always. We got a couple of comments in from Spotify. One is from Matt Reed Gloss. It says, an exceptionally well put together episode, which distinguishes 1% better from 99% of podcasts. Great contributions, great contributors, and high levels of self awareness and humility from the hosts in understanding how they could have inadvertently trampled over this complex topic. He's got a quote here from C.S. Lewis, which says, humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. And that is all in reference to last week's episode with professional cyclist Clara Koppenberg, who came on here and talked us through how she overcame an eating disorder. But wow, Matt, that is maybe one of the best comments we've ever received on this podcast. Thank you.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, all comments are welcome. If they're that good, they're doubly welcome. So no, I do appreciate that. It does mean a lot to us when we get comments or, we get some new subscribers in that, because it is, largely a labor of love for us. So it's cool that it's resonating with people and they're engaging. So also wanted to thank Claire Petzel. So she said, it sounds like, this is again with respect to Clara, she says she sounds like she didn't get a medical/dietitian support. Given her point about not knowing what is happening to her body/additional weight gain, ? Sounds like classic ED overshoot theory, where the body deliberately stores energy in case of future starvation again, then settles to do a future set point. But maybe she's heard of this, but it's not that. So we didn't want to go too much into the medical side of things. I respond to all of these comments on Spotify, but it's a good point. There is this theory of overshoot, which is to say that, if you've been super lean for too long, you'll sort of overshoot and get a new set point of what a sort of homeostasis is. I didn't want to go into that too much with Clara, and she is under some medical care here. I think there's probably some stuff to navigate that we don't understand with respect to like who owns her care, because she's part of a cycling team. And it's worthwhile remembering that, and this is a challenge for athletes in general, is that who your carers are may not be your choice, and you may have to engage with team carers, right? That might be dietitians or whatever else, and they may or may not be skilled. So I don't want to put words into Clara's mouth or into her situation. I'm just intuiting a little bit there, and if Clara needs help and reaches out to us, we can certainly put her in touch with people, but we didn't want to insert ourselves into that either. So she gets to choose, and she has, her father's well connected, as we mentioned already, in cycling, and and medical world. So I'm sure he's getting her care.
We've got a lot to get through on this episode. With the next few shout outs goes to Christian Trampeter, who did a really solid 30-kilometer run in 1 hour 51 minutes in prep for Berlin Marathon in 2 weeks' time. Also, Kapil Satsangi, who ran the Dwarka Half Marathon in 2 hours 13 minutes. And then Tom Wallace. Is Tom someone you know? Why do I know that name?
We've given him a few shout outs. He posts about the podcast a lot on his Strava as well. So, Tom, we gave him a shout out a little while ago. He's doing Sydney and then another marathon that I can't remember the name of. I think it might have been one of the ones in New Zealand, maybe Dunedin. So, he ran 2:58 to break 3 for the first time in Sydney. So, that's a great result. It's actually reminded me, I was like looking at the time, I was like, that reminds me of my time for the first time I went sub 3 in Amsterdam without wanting to insert myself into the conversation. But I was like,
What do
I
you
looked
mean?
at
That's
my time.
exactly what you're doing. Don't act
Well,
humble, yeah?
it's just eerie that like he ran 2:58:58 and I ran 2:58:54. Like you're not going to find too many marathon times that are that close together. But it's a cool feeling, and hopefully he felt more comfortable about going sub 3 than I did because I remember running through Vondel Park thinking I'm not on here, and then running down Amsterdam going no, I'm on here, and then so it was very much flip flopping. So hopefully it was a little bit less stressful than that, Tom. And then you can have the last one,
Uh,
mate.
David's saying to make another last one because he's pasted it into this document and it's in Russian. I don't speak Russian, but whatever you did,
Be
Vasily
better, mate.
Pimitin,
Be
well
better.
done to you. I don't know what you did. Okay, we've got numbers here from Strava. What is this? He ran 3.54 kilometers in 3:04 pace. That's 10
Yep.
minutes, 53 seconds.
Yep, in the Kavkaz run. What's the problem, mate?
What's the Russian next to it? What does it
I have
mean?
no idea. I said something 3.5 Ks and he won it. By the looks of it, he won it, mate. Don't you speak emoji? Come on,
Listen,
mate. Be better. Be
I just
better.
love that we have audience far and wild. It's so cool that you are listening, Vasily, and you're part of this community. Absolutely love it. Right, let's have a look at what's happening in the sporting world the last couple of weeks or so. What's come across my desk? I guess we have to start with Sydney Marathon. We did a big preview for it 2 weeks ago when we had professional runner from Australia on, Lisa Waitman. Sydney Marathon finally happened. What went down?
Well, I mean, probably what we thought would go down in many respects. I think some of this will be surprising and some of it's probably not surprising at all. I mean, Safana San won it. She ran 2:18:22. Again, no one's surprised with that. She beat Bridget Kosgei by 34 seconds, ran a over 3-minute course record, which again shouldn't surprise anyone as the first person to break 2:20 on Australian soil, first woman to break 2:20 on Australian soil. So again, no one's too surprised by that.
The difference in running style between the two of them, I was watching. Safan's got such a long stride, and then Bridget Kosgei's got short stride, high cadence. It's probably got to do with their height, right? The difference in height.
So this is something to realize. Height is one aspect of it, but think about relative proportions. So if you go have a look at Kipchoge, he is not actually that tall, but as a proportion of his height, his legs are very long. And this is
Okay.
worthwhile noticing is like the proportion of leg length to torso length in your height, because that's going to make a huge difference to your running ability. What you'd like to be is not particularly tall, but very high ratio of leg to torso. You want a tiny
Okay. So
torso and long
small
legs.
torso. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, height is not a bad thing, but certainly you really want like proportionate. You want long legs within that. So, and that's what Kipchoge's got, a ton of that, and I've got very little of that. So I've got a really long torso, so it's not helpful. And it's also a relevant factor when you get to things like squatting and deadlifting mechanics as well. And most people think they're all the same, but like they are certainly not. Those things are very much like what we think about when we think about talent. Especially if you talk to powerlifting coaches, they'll talk about those proportions: shin length to like thigh length and torso length as well.
Okay. And what went down in the men's race?
Well, probably the thing that may have surprised the casual fan is that Kipchoge didn't win it. It didn't surprise anybody who knew about running, I think, is that, Kipchoge is on the very much back couple of holes of his career, very much there as an ambassador, trying to, prompt, trying to sort of develop running and spread the message of running and all those positive messages. I mean, it made me laugh a little bit because, like, I've always been a bit tongue in cheek about his like no human is limited thing because like we are kind of limited in some respects. Like physiology
Of
is
course.
undefeated, and so is Father Time. So like he was a little bit limited by his age, I'd say, or his ability, but he's still got top 10, and that speaks again to how good he was at his peak. Because as a very much back half of his career, he's still running. I think you're in 208 or 209 somewhere there. Like that's still a very good time, particularly on Australian soil, particularly in that race. Like that's really impressive for a bloke who's very much past his best. So it speaks at how good he was at his best. But it was won by Halimariam Kebadu. He went in 206.06 over Addison Gobenya. Adisu Gobenya. Jeez, I'm not doing well today. Who ran 206 as well.
I can't even fix that in the edit. I'm sorry. Can't help you there.
No, it's all right, mate. I mean, probably more people, certainly in the Australian running scene, were interested in the battle for Australian honours. So I think the women's race probably went how we thought it would go, or how many people thought it would go. So Leanne Pompiani beat Jess Stenson, who beat Lisa Waitman. So they went 7th through 9th in that order, that respectively. So it was 2:24 for Leanne in her second marathon. So she's up and coming from the marathon standpoint. Jess is established, probably back half of the middle of her career, and obviously Lisa, as we talked to her, is sort of more towards the tail end of her career. And we probably saw this. I mean, this is huge for Leanne. Like, it's really big run. She's been doing a lot of running, like 200 Ks a week. In her second marathon, run
Wow.
220. Yeah, in her
200
second
Ks a
marathon,
week.
to run 224 on that course is really, really impressive. Beyond these girls, though, like the women's field was pretty weak. All these women, it got real. Like, I don't want to be disparaging, but like there was some times in there in the top 20 that you look at and you go, this is a world marathon major. Those times are probably not getting in the top, 40, 50 when we start thinking about, other marathons. And yes, Sydney may not be the fastest course, although Safan ran 2:18 on it. So it ain't slow, right? So it's worthwhile remembering that. Now, of course, it's probably 4 minutes or 5 minutes. No, so it's probably 3-4 minutes slower than she could run on a flat course, but that's not terrible. So yeah, you sort of look at that and go, well, there's some stuff that's closer to 3 hours that probably shouldn't be in the top 20 of a world marathon major for women. So
I wonder if it's a case of Australia is very far away and this was the first time it was a world marathon major. Maybe it'll grow year on year, all of the above. It'll be interesting to see. Time will tell.
yeah, I think that's spot on. Is that if you have Berlin Marathon, like you can roll into Berlin from anywhere within an hour. Like if you go to Australia, it's a lot of money, a lot of time. I think people probably justifiably there's probably a bit of hype, like I want to go, but I don't think those people are the ones who are going to run fast. I think those people are the ones who are going to finish and enjoy it and are collecting their stars. I think other people will start to look at this now and go, oh, you can run pretty quick on it. It's not super slow. It's a good thing. It's well organized, all those things. So I do think the fields will get stronger and stronger for sure. And both the Australian and the international fields. I think that having this in Australia means that Australian distance running, people will start to target Sydney, and that will increase that there's a carrot for them, and that will increase the quality of the running here. So on the men's side, we had Haftu Strinzos win this. I think this was a bit of an upset for some people. I think some people might have picked Haftu. He did start a marathon recently, but then DNF'd. So this is his first finish of a marathon. He ran 2:11.27, which was quick. Beat last year's winner, Tom DeCanto, who ran 2:13. And again, probably people weren't thinking Tom was going to... They were probably picking him for second, but probably behind Brett. Brett ran 2:15. Now, Brett won this 2 years ago and was previously the Australian record holder. So
just quickly, this is This is Australian honours. Were they literally handing out first, second, third medals for Australians?
Yeah, just like they do in America and Britain. Like if you run, and in Germany, so if you run any of the World Marathon majors, they will talk about first American or first German or first British person. I don't know about Tokyo, but that's a big deal. The race within the race, and it creates. There's prize money, there's prestige, all those things, and it creates again a reason to shoot for things. So Brett came 17th. And he's third Australian. Like that's better for him there than he is coming 17th in Berlin or something like that. If he comes 17th in Berlin,
come on, just hand these people participation trophies, man. You're finishing 17th in a pro race and you're getting celebrated. Just hand everyone a participation. No, I'm joking. I do understand that there is media attention around it. I do understand people from that population want people they can relate to and look up to and cheer for. I totally get it. I'm just being facetious.
Listen, mate, don't you start. At least Sydney got its bloody act together and can be world marathon major, not like Cape Town, mate. So don't you start.
Cape Town will be a major next year. We are after next max.
I mean, maybe. Let's see if
Yeah.
they can organize it.
I saw Gerda Steyn is running. They're trying to put a high profile start list together. Anyway, we'll talk about that closer to the race probably.
Yeah, sounds good, mate.
UTMB Festival happened last week. You were there for some of it. Where do we start? I mean, do we start by the fact that you can name drop some of the winners, that you rub shoulders with some of these big players? Where do you want to start, man?
I start the order they raced in. So we won't touch on all the races. It's just some observations. Again, we don't want to be a results show. We just want to be like some observations. So I made the observation that all these races started, like the key climb is up to Flagere. And to some degree that was correct, although the OCC course was changed. So they actually removed that bit of it and made it a lot more runnable. Um, some stuff I noticed this new course was that a bunch of runners who were on the podium at the time or in podium positions and ended up on the podium got stuck at a train crossing and had to stand there and wait while the train went by, which just can't happen. Is horrible. There's videos floating around social media of like the guy who came third standing there, a couple of women waiting there together. It's like, we can't be having this. You got to
What do
stop
you
that
mean?
train. What do you mean? What do I mean? They were stopped at a train. The train was crossing. They had to stop.
Yeah, but they're never going to stop the train. I mean, it happens in Paris-Roubaix, the biggest cycling races in the world. The train will never stop. The event always stops. And if you don't make it through, tough luck. For those who do make it through, tough luck.
Yeah, except you can stop this train because it's just one that goes up and down. Like it's not that important. Like that train,
Okay,
you can
okay,
wait it.
okay,
It can wait 1 minute or 2 minutes and let them
okay.
through. And again, I'm not talking about stopping it for the top 50. I'm talking about stopping it for the top three. Like
Yeah,
third
yeah,
man was
yeah.
stuck there.
That's
This is a
affecting the
problem.
race big time. Okay.
Yeah, and again, I had to stop at the Eiger and wait for the train at the Eiger 50K, but I'm not an elite. I'm like, all right, we stand here for a bit. I eat some food. We carry on. No
Who
worries.
cares? Yeah.
But when you're racing for like pretty big money here, like I think the winners were getting 20,000 euros. Like let's just
Yeah,
make
wow.
sure that we either start the race at a time where it'll be appropriate when we cross, or we just delay the train a little bit or something like that. Like it's doable in that area. I know the trains well enough. It'll be okay.
Mm.
Right. So, it's not Switzerland where the train has to run every minute, but in Switzerland, they probably would have organized it that it ran the minute before. So, anyway, um, I mean, this was interesting. If you watched the live stream, you probably missed the guy who ended up coming second, passing Jim, but he passed him pretty late, which is quite interesting to see. So he passed Jim late. Everyone's like, all of a sudden, oh, Jim's in second. What's happening? And then, I mean, Jim ended up having to sprint past this guy. He passed him with about 2Ks to go, which was crazy. Probably for me, the takeaway here for people to watch and go back and watch this is how Jim passes him. So Jim runs up to him and sits back for a little bit and then passes definitively to put some distance in him. So he sort of rested a little bit and then put a bit of a surge in to go past him. And he ended up
Have you
only winning
said
by
Jim's
a few
have,
seconds.
have you said Jim's surname once? We're not all on a first name basis here.
I'm not either, but like he is one of those first name people.
I'm
Again, this
joking.
happens a lot, and you always give me grief for this. Like Jim Walmsley's Jim. Like people know him. He's Jim. He's like one of the great. He's one of the best ultra runners probably in the field at the moment. So anyway, Jim Walmsley is the man. And then on the women's side, the thing that caught my eye was Joylyn Chepengano. Is the first ever Kenyan to win a race at the UTMB festival, which is huge. Not the first African. Tony McCann won the CCC last year. She's from South Africa, but this was the first Kenyan. There was a couple of things I observed in this win, other than she won it, which was great. And we'll see if we can get some more info other than that. And I won't say too much more than that upcoming. But the commentators kept saying, we'll see how she goes because she's never run this far in her life. It's probably further than she's ever run because she'd run the Marathon de Mont Blanc, which is 40Ks. And this is 60Ks. They didn't say that while Eli Hemming was running, even though Eli Hemming said, I've never run more than 5 hours and this will be 10 hours. And he said that in his pre-race interview. It felt like either laziness or something else that was, less charitable than that. And it's a bit ridiculous.
I must say, you've told me about this for the last couple of years, how the visuals on the broadcast is completely unbelievable what they managed to capture. So I enjoyed watching the live streams, but I must say, on the commentary, it was a little underwhelming to me. I don't know who they are, like, no offense, but it was very underwhelming.
Some of them were pretty iffy. I actually thought Tony McCann, the South African runner, was unbelievable.
Yeah,
I
she
thought
was
she
good.
was really,
Yeah,
really good.
I caught bits of her. Yeah. She hopped on there after crashing out of her race and was very good.
She did. She did indeed. I actually wanted to see if I could get some word to her through some people that know her to say, "Hey, that was great. Really well done." The other was another weird situation. Joylyn, she runs for the Milimani runners, who are supported by Salomon. They're not a Salomon team. Salomon doesn't own that team. They just sponsor them. The Salomon heads of something or team managers or something were out on course, and they basically yelled at her to take what looked like take off your headband. Basically, she had this headband on that was clearly not a Salomon headband, and they made her take it off part of the way through, which was really, really weird. And the last thing I wanted to mention, a bit of a doctor's office on the OCC, was Sarah Alonso finished fifth. She's a very good Spanish runner. She finished with, I'm not sure, I couldn't find out exact dates on this, but she got gored by a bull in training and had a
What?
broken rib. Yeah, she got gored by a bull in training. She was running through a field and a bull came at her and gored her. So she ended up with a broken rib and then ended up winning this race. So if you watch her celebration, she does like little cow's horns and runs along, which is
That's
crazy.
so cool. The
But I just,
celebration being cool, not getting
yeah,
attacked by a bull.
I mean, impressive to be able to come back from that and do this. I'm always a bit funny about cows and bulls up high, so I'm stoked that it's justified now. It's not just me being a scaredy cat.
Should we move on to CCC?
Yeah, let's do that. I mean, one thing I observed from the shorter races, and let's
Just
say
quickly,
shorter,
sorry again. Like my brain, we need context for people tuning in for the first time. Also, I need context sometimes. OCC, how long is it? CCC, how long is that?
yeah. So the way to think about this is the UTMB is the full lap of the mountain, right? So these are the three main races: OCC, UTMB, and CCC. Three main races. UTMB from Chamonix all the way around the mountain to Chamonix, right? And it goes in a counterclockwise direction. One of the big stops is in Courmayeur, right? That's about 70 kilometers through the UTMB. There is a race that goes from Courmayeur through Champaillac to Chamonix, CCC, and that starts in Courmayeur and goes the same direction. It's basically the same route, but it's a shorter race. It's 100 kilometers. Then there is the OCC, which starts in Ossier in Switzerland and then jumps on the course and ends up at Champay and Chamonix. So this is the shortest of the three, and that is 60-ish Ks. These all vary just based on the year. Like UTMB was a little bit longer this year, so was OCC because the course has changed because of weather. But yeah, that's basically the story. Then there is the TDS, which is the other high-profile race. It goes the other way. It goes from Courmayeur to Chamonix, but the other way. It goes clockwise. It's a very technical, mostly self-supported. It's a bit more of a mountaineers race, so it's not often. It's kind of one of those other things. We're going to talk about that race in a little while, not because we want to recount it, but it has for some context. But in the CCC, and so the CCC being 100K and the OCC being sort of 60-ish K, they were a lot closer. And now, partially we talked about last week because of the field strength, I think is part of it, but also just I think shorter racing means there's less chaotic things that cause big deltas in people, right? And so at the top of the Flagere, there was only 5 minutes between the top four women.
Wow.
And
Okay. I thought you were going to
so,
say top two. Wow.
no, top four women. So they coming off Flagere, which is, I don't know how many kilometers it is. It's probably like 8-10 kilometers, but downhill. So now you're like flying downhill and then there's a bit of flat at the end. It's like, oh, what's happening here? So we talked about Martina Milnarczyk already, supported by Precision. She ran the second fastest time in history, but she was only 18 seconds ahead of Sylvia Nordska in second. And Sylvia actually passed her on one of the downhills and then she passed her back.
I
So it was a
saw that
crazy
footage. Yeah.
finish.
And it was a little dark. Like, I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
they taking crazy risks here, racing each other.
And probably for them, they're not using the best headlights because they would be using lighter headlights because they don't really need them that much. That was the last
Mm.
little bit. And then they get into town and it's, when you're in town, it's fine. So that was crazy to see. But exciting. It's cool to see 100 Ks of racing. We end up with that. And then we had probably everybody's, unbackable favorite, Francesco Pupi, the Italian man. He beat David Sinclair. So he's the first Italian man to win the CCC and actually had a funny finish line interview. He's like, "We're so back." So it was quite good. But he also ran the fastest time on that current course, which is pretty significant because John Albon had run it. He's a very good runner as well, and John Albon ran the fastest time on that to this date. But I mean, of interest, he pretty much led from the start, but he also didn't use poles, which is very different, particularly for people who are from Europe. So he didn't use them at all. Which, I mean, he didn't bring them. So that's yeah.
And then UTMB, Ultra Trail du Mont Blanc.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
long
yeah.
is that?
varies, but like 171 Ks or so.
Wow. Wow.
And then about 10,000 meters of climbing, but it's a bit different this year. It was a little bit longer and a little bit less climbing. So it's like 100 and something miles. But they just call it 100-mile distance. So they had really rough weather with like some snow up in the high passes, like proper snow. And so it was pretty rough. It still had a pretty good finishing rate this year. So shout out for all these stats have come from Aid Station Fireball on X. It's a like stats guy. It's great. Anyway, so 66.8 finisher rate, which is kind of high normal, I would say, for UTMB. And that's overall, that's not elite fields. But that usually gives you an idea of how bad the year was. So it was rough up high, but not too bad otherwise. And again, not everybody goes over the top of Grand Col Ferret and the high points when it is cold. Some people go through the night, particularly the men. But if you're, a little bit behind them, then you go through it during the day, so it's a bit different. They did cut the course, they removed the pyramids, which again for weather reasons. So anyway, Tom Evans won this in the men's. He was pretty dominant. So he won by 32 minutes and 39 seconds, which is the largest margin of victory since 2019 when Pau Capol decimated the field. It's the fastest second half of this race in history, running 10 hours 53, although there's some slight adjustments in the course. I don't know how much to take from that, but yep.
I must give you some kudos. About a month ago, David and I were in Chamonix together, walking down the streets, and this guy goes, "David Lipman," and we turn around, and there's Tom Evans wearing a Red Bull cap, trying to get David's attention, saying hi to him, and then we walk away, and David says, "Oh, that guy's gonna win UTMB in a month's time." So I must give you kudos for that, man.
Yeah, I did have a coffee with him, and after having that, I was like, this guy's going to win, and he did. So that was great. And so he took the lead pretty early on, and then never really looked back. He was being chased down by his ASICS teammates. ASICS went 1-2 here. A guy called Ben Dearman from the US. So yeah, it's quite interesting to see that. And then Ruth Croft, somebody we had on our previous podcast, first ever Kiwi runner to win a race, to win the UTMB. Sorry, she's won other races. She struggled a bit overnight with the cold and her vision, and had a bout of hypothermia at Transvolcania earlier this year that made her DNF. So that really helped set her up for this because she was really weary of the cold. She famously doesn't do winters. She spends a European summer in Europe and then Southern Hemisphere summer in New Zealand. But she came through pretty strong and won convincingly. She is the first lady to win what they call the majors, which is OCC, CCC, and UTMB, the sort of majors here. She's also the only person who ever won those three and Western States. And the only man who's won those three is a guy called Xavier Thabernard, who's also won the TDS that we mentioned before. So he's kind of and he's won UTMB multiple times. So she's in pretty rarefied air there, and people were really stoked with it. She also had some peanut butter whiskey on the finish line. A friend of hers, as a bit of a joke, gave her a shot of that. So that sounded pretty rough to me. The thing that one of the big takeaways here to me, particularly in the OCC, but it sort of went along from there, was how multinational the top tens were. So the men's OCC had 7 nationalities. Women's had 6 in the top 10. In the CCC, men's had 5, women's had 7. And in the UTMB, 4 for the men and 7 for the women. So
probably speaks to the growth of trail running, right? This would have been very different a few years ago.
10 years ago, this was like all Europeans. It's 4 countries, if that, maybe a couple of Americans. And I mean, like, to be honest, when we say 7 countries, you're talking Italy, Spain, France, and then you got US, UK, and then 1 or 2 others. So Kenya,
Kenya.
or Kenya or New Zealand or something like that. Australia was in there in the top 10 as well. So certainly, like, it's less diverse than it sounds. When I say 7 countries, people go like, "Oh wow!" You're like, "Oh," when I say it like that, people go, "Oh, yeah, maybe not." But nonetheless, I don't know how many times we would see that in a world marathon major. Right? It's probably going to be 3 or 4 is going to be the sort of default there. So it's cool. It's cool to see, as you say, multinational and doing well. I certainly saw a runner from Nigeria. I saw multiple runners from Zimbabwe, 1 or 2 from Kenya. So we're certainly getting there. And obviously it's huge in Asia as well.
Just quickly, listeners might want to know, because we feel like we know Emily Horgood now. How did she go? Previous guest on the podcast we had on a few weeks ago.
Tough day for Emily. She decided to finish nonetheless. Actually, and thank you for reminding me. This brings up Courtney Dauwalter as well. Basically, for an elite, the question is like, should I even bother finishing if I'm not going well, right? And the temptation is to drop out, live to get fight again another day, reload and race something else. Now, people like Ruth Croft only race 100 miler a year. Now Emily races 2, but the point is, like, are you better off reloading and going and doing something else? Maybe you reload now, go run. Australia in like January, February, something like that, right? Or Tarawera in New Zealand. So you certainly could do that. Emily wanted to finish. I don't know. I haven't spoken to her about why or what her decision making process or what went wrong, but she was having a bad day and she finished. And I think it's kind of like when Christian Blumenfeld finished Kona last year, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's great that he did that and suffered through." I think it goes both ways. I don't think you should pass judgment on people deciding to do it or not. There's reasons to finish it, and there's reasons not to finish it. 100%. I don't. But it's cool to see that she finished probably about 12 hours after she thought she would have. I think she would have probably guessed she would have come in right around like 24 hours or so, there or thereabouts. And I think she finished in like 36 hours. So it's pretty rough for her, but it's cool to see her finish. And she was pretty positive about having finished. And in terms of Courtney and why I was happy you brought this up, Courtney was obviously one of the favorites. She's probably the favorite. Everyone thought she's probably going to win. I thought Ruth was going to win. And Courtney just had a bad day as well. But why they would bring this up is similar to Kipchoge. She had a pretty rough day, still finished top 10. She's like
Yeah.
she's that much better than
Wow.
people.
Yeah.
She's just so good physiologically, but also it's crazy to see the support she had. It's wild to see. Go look at her Instagram. It's crazy to see like when she was running through areas how wild they were going. So it's awesome.
Right, that's trail running. Let's move on to athletics and the Diamond League finals from Zurich. I really enjoyed watching this. What were some of our highlights from there?
I just think Zurich does a great job because they put like many of the field events in town on day one, and I just think that's a great way
It
to
looks
expose
so
people.
cool. Oh, like the high jump and all of that. You can see they like bolted in the streets. Like so cool.
I can't remember where it was earlier this year. They did a pole vault inside of a train station, so people were like
Wow.
commuting home, they get to see pole vault. And I like that's how you expose the sports people who don't know, right? And that's how
Yeah.
you grow the sport. I reckon. I just think it's really, really cool. So anyway, they did that. I mean, probably the big thing for the field events, Nicola Olislagers, the Australian high jumper, broke the national record, ran jump 204, beating Yaroslava Mahuchik. So Yaroslava's beaten her in the Olympics, but Nicola's won a world champs before. We had very early in the podcast, we had Nikolai Morris, her strength and conditioning coach, on to talk about it. So certainly go back and look at that if you're interested or listening to that.
I don't know if we talked about this before, but people who have watched Nicola Alislagers perform would have seen the moment she does a jump, she gets back to her stuff, takes out a notebook and jots it down. I think we spoke about it briefly, but she was actually asked, "What do you put down in that notebook?" Did you see that?
I saw that this was the case. You brought this up to me, and I told you that we talked about this before. But I just want to call you out on that before you pretend you remember that. But no, it's she talks about process. It's all about process. How did you feel? What were the cues? What went well? What didn't go well? I mean, this is what people talk about. Like this is the sort of stuff you need to do. Whether it's the NFL and going back and watching tape and then getting feedback on that, on tactics and technical aspects, whether it's watching back your jumps and understanding what you're doing to fail or on unsuccessful or successful ones, or how you're feeling in the moment. So for a long time, when I was lifting very seriously, I kept a training diary with how am I feeling that day, what's my body weight, every set I lifted, what that felt like, how it was going, should I go up, should I go down, what was good, bad, and different every week. And it's super helpful to go back and watch that and read that and then think about why I'm succeeding or failing or progressing well or not progressing well. So I would encourage people to do this more and more, whether it's comments on something like Training Peaks or something else.
I love that. Yeah, she was saying the result almost doesn't matter, or that she's not focused on the result. It is just process, process, process. And the more you do the things you need to do, the more the better the likely outcome for you. I know you found like a couple of the other races very interesting. Which one stood out for you?
Yeah, again, I won't go through everything. The 3000s are really weird. Like, my thoughts here were I said to you that I'm happy that they moved the Diamond League final before the World Championships because previously it was after the World Championships. And I was like, if you had a bad World Championships, maybe you turn up to the Diamond League final and like had a bit of a punt to like for redemption. Now it's not so much of an afterthought, but the fields are really still not great. They're still a bit funny. Some people are wanting to race,
Mm.
some people are wanting to go do training, particularly in the distance. They're probably going to altitude to then come back down for a month out. So it's a bit of a funny thing. So that, like nobody's really keen to go with paces. And there's probably some component of like we just wanted to practice championship racing. So I don't know why they had paces in here. I never understand why people don't go with a pacer. Someone selects that pace. Now, if it's the event, you say to the event, why are you even paying these people? Don't bother. And if it's not the event and it's the people who select, athletes have a meeting and say, oh, we want this pace, then like, why aren't you going with it? In my
I,
mind, if you say we want this pace and you don't go with it, you don't even try, then you don't get to say that again.
I
Like
noticed that in a few races, yeah, like one or two, both paces would go out, and no one would go with them. I noticed
at
that.
one point, the commentators that I had were talking about like the spacer is actually allowed to win the race, and they may go on and do that. And I thought, oh, geez,
Oh,
that'd be a bit of a turn up.
I didn't hear that, but that is something that I wondered. I was like, oh, they. I know I've seen it before in a 50K world record attempt here in my town where the pacer was feeling so good and she just shouted, it was a loop. And when she came across the finish line for one of the loops, she shouted at the organizer, I'm feeling good. Can I keep going? And she ended up winning the race.
Yeah, it's great. I
Yeah.
reckon it's play on.
Yeah.
I mean, probably here the men's 200 was interesting. We had Noah Lyles versus Letsile Tebogo. So Tebogo's only beaten him in the Olympics. Otherwise, in big races, Noah's won, and he did that again. Tebogo led like 95% of this race. The last 5 meters, Lyles came through, but Lyles probably showed that he is more of a speed endurance runner, which is to say he had a really strong last 60. Whereas Tebogo was a really good starter, probably a little bit better around the bend as well. So, I mean, it's a
Man, you
tale of
just
two
spoiled it.
styles.
You just spoiled it for me. I was watching 80% of the event and I recorded the last 20% because I had to go to bed or something. So I missed this race. I just realized that now. Oh,
We'll go back and watch it. It's exciting nonetheless.
yeah.
And
Oh,
watch the difference in where they're strong and weak. The women's 800, Sekadiso's was good in the Olympics and has been shocking all season. She's going out with a
mm.
pace and then just dying, man. It's really interesting to see, and I'm not sure what drives that. Maybe she was injured or just had a bad season, but she's trying and just not quite there.
Yeah,
Georgia
she sort of
Hunt,
goes. She goes after the pacemaker. She goes after the who would win, and then yeah, she just dies in the last couple of 100 meters. So either you
yeah,
need to tactically approach the race differently, or realize you're not where you maybe want to be, and approach the race differently.
agree. Georgia Hunter Bell, we talked about her. She's running the 800 at the World Champs because she's a good chance of a medal or a better chance of a medal, we think. I think she's a better 1500 meter runner. I'm not the only one who holds that opinion, but she's probably got a better chance of medaling in this event. Having said that, she's been beaten by Wero twice. She got beaten in this race by Wero, who ran 155 for a national Swiss national record. So I think she's probably a bit worried. Like Keely's clearly going to win that race, and then it's like, oh, I might be in bronze at best. And then you go, well, if I'm in bronze at best, I'm a chance of being knocked off. So let's see. The thing that's in her favor is she has a really mean kick, and generally, broadly, there's championship races are a bit slower. I don't think Keely will do that. I think Keely will go. So I don't think it's going to be the case, but let's see. Let's keep an eye on that one. You like this race a lot, the women's 1500 meters,
Never
where
seen anything
Jess,
like it.
yeah, it's probably a great example of what happens when you just can't go anymore. The running in treacle really tying up. Jess Hull, poor thing, just couldn't quite get there to the line. She's running an absolute treacle and she got taken in the last like meter in a photo finish. It was wild to watch. It has huge implications for her team selection and teammate selection, which I think is part of why she was so disappointed because I think it impacts one of the other Australians being able to be selected. So, yeah, I feel quite bad for everybody
I,
involved, but it
I mean,
was crazy to watch that.
she was leading the race, looked like she was going to win, and I don't know, with about 150 meters to go or something, you could literally see the lights go out. Her legs just stopped working, and she was just trying to will them on to get to the finish line. I've never seen anything like it.
It's almost comical to watch. It's a great example of like she was willing them on, and it's just like again, humans are limited by some
Yeah,
things. So,
true.
and in the men's 1500, like Niels Laros, I was speaking about this kid the other week. He ran 3:29 for national records, like just so fast. He's got such a good kick on him. It was amazing to watch. So keep an eye on him. And then I wanted to quick shout out to the Last Chance Saloon. So winning this Diamond League final gives you an entry into the World Champs. And we talked about Yared Nagus and Josh Hoey, and they were nowhere, not even close. Hoey gave up at one point. He was like, just shook his head and like stopped trying hard. It was, I felt a bit sorry for him, but that's the reality of it. The one person who did make it through was Brittany Brown, the women's 200. So she ran a season's best 22:13. So, yeah, that is the Diamond League.
Sticking with running, last week we spoke a bit about Chicago Marathon and the fields that were announced. Should we touch on New York quickly?
Sorry, that's my bad. That was a couple of weeks ago that we talked about Chicago, but yes, let's do that. It looks like New York's grabbed a lot of the bigger names and sort of cannibalized. We talked about this at the time, cannibalized a little bit of Chicago, as has the World Championships and maybe Valencia as well. And then Tamara Tola's running Amsterdam for reasons I assume are related to his management group.
Money.
I can't see, and his management group, they probably have a good agreement with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the big storyline here is like Lekedi versus Abiri, round 7. It's the 4th time they've raced in New York, but it's certainly the 7th time they've raced in general. So to recount this, basically, Sharon Lekedi and Helen Obiri for the record. So 2022, Sharon Lekedi wins in her debut marathon, 2:23:23, and Obiri fades to 6th in her debut, was 2:25, and that was in New York. And the next year, Obiri won in 2:27, and Lekedi was 3rd in 2:20. Sorry, that was 2:27:23 versus 2:27:33. So that was very close. That was a sprint finish to the line. There's obviously someone between them. In 2024, Obiri outsprinted Lekedi in the final mile to win Boston, right? Running 2:22:37 to 2:22:45.
Man,
Obiri
there's
then,
seconds between them all the
yeah, that
time.
was a great race. I enjoyed that one a lot. And then 2024, Obiri snagged the Olympic bronze in Paris, running 2:23. It doesn't really matter what she ran. She beat her. Lekedi was 4th. And then last year again, Obiri finished 2nd in New York, and Lekedi really struggled and finished 9th. So then this year in Boston, Lekedi flipped it, and she won. She ran 2:17, and Obiri 22, and Obiri ran 2:17:41. So seconds between them. So it's 4-2 to Obiri at the moment, with many of those in New York. So let's
But
watch this one closely.
in all those times, they're just seconds between them. So the margin for error for getting something wrong is like you have no margin. It's incredible, man. Oh,
Yeah, that speaks to like how much are you leading versus following somebody? Are you skipping wind? Are you getting your nutrition in? All those little margins, right? And then all
mm.
the other stuff that's impossible to quantify. But yeah, it's crazy to see that. But it's cool to see. So the aforementioned Sharon Lekedi and Helen Obiri headline this field, and then between them, from a PB standpoint, with the 2:17 as well, is Sheila Chepkuri. So she was 3rd in Valencia 2022 and ran that 2:17:29. So that puts her between them. Other people might know Gotitom Ghebreselassie is there. She was 3rd in Sydney and won Hamburg last year, I think, and then was 7th in Tokyo this year. And then we have from the Americans Emily Sisson, Sarah Hall, Susanna Sullivan, Fiona O'Keefe, Molly Seidel, and a bunch of others, Sarah Vaughan, Kellen Taylor, Stephanie Bruce, right? So, I mean, probably the things that I'm tracking here are the 2 comebacks. So Fiona O'Keefe, she was an Olympian but dropped out 5Ks in and had a femoral stress fracture. And then Molly Seidel, who was an Olympian from Tokyo Olympics and has been getting herself right mentally and has been dropped by sponsors. So she's sort of on the comeback there as well. So it'd be interesting to see that. I mean, I think Molly, if she's in a good place physically and mentally, is a bit of a dark horse. She won. She got 3rd. She was bronze in Tokyo on a pretty hilly, rough course. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, it was Sapporo at the time. Oh, sorry, it wasn't that hilly, but it was a tough day. So yeah, that'll be interesting to watch.
I love this background you give us. Like, because I watch the race now with that background in mind to see what the eventual outcome will be. So cool.
Yeah,
Who
and
do we have
then
in the
well, I
men's
was going to say
field?
we also have Ailish McColgan, the Brit. So she
All
got
right.
7th this year in London. We talked about her running so much solo and how she should have run with Rose Harvey at the time. So let's see if she does a better job of with pacing this year. Maybe she's in better shape. She stays with the leaders for longer, but she'll have. I know she won't have men around her this time either, so it'll be pretty rough if she falls off the back again. So another lonely day if she's not careful.
She's there 224, I think. 224 marathon runner, PB. Yeah.
She ran 2:24, yeah, in
Yeah.
London. So she'll run. She'd be happy with the 2:24 in New York, but it's probably going to be slower than that. I'd say it's probably going to be more like 2:26 or so, but depends. Maybe she's in better shape.
Cool. And then on to the men.
Yeah, so I guess the big names here: Benson Kipruto, and so he won Tokyo last year, was 3rd in Paris, 3rd in Boston, and 2nd in Chicago. Sorry, Boston and Chicago that I mentioned were 2023. Darisa Galetta, so he was 2nd in Tokyo this year, and then in 2024 he won Sevilla, 2nd in Valencia, and 5th in Paris. So those are kind of second tier marathons, but he ran fast, 2:02. It's his PB. Evans Chebet, so this guy was the one that was left out of the early squads for Kenya and didn't get to run. So he was 2nd in New York last year. He was 3rd in Boston last year, and then won Boston in 2023. So this guy's He's probably underrated Evans Chebet, but he's been running really, really well podium wise at hilly marathons in America. And then Alexander Matuso Munyao. So he's was third in London this year, won London last year, second in Valencia 2023. But I'm interested to see how he goes on the hills because those are all pretty flat. And then Abdi Nagi. So Abdi was fourth in London this year, but he won New York last year. If you remember a couple of years ago, I told you when we were previewing one of these, or maybe it was last year, I said this guy loves getting third and second. He was
Yeah,
always the
yeah.
bridesmaid, and he's a Dutch guy, so he's won Rotterdam a few times. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he goes in this. As he's a defending champion, so you can't discount him. But I think the field's a little bit better this year. But it doesn't take. It takes a couple of bad days and a good day from him, and he wins it again. So he'll be full of confidence. And other than that, like names that caught my eye: Sundre Moen, national record holder for Norway; Pat Tiernan, the Australian; and Johnny Mellor, the Brit; and then Joe Klecker is making his debut. So Joe Klecker was like running track a little while ago, so he's stepping right up. So let's see how he goes. Interested to see how he does in his debut there.
Right, before we go, should we look at who's in the doctor's office? I remember a few months ago we spoke about professional cyclist Michael Matthews putting his racing career on hold due to a pulmonary embolism. It has now been announced that he is back and he's actually going to race the World Championships in Kigali, Rwanda, which I'm very excited about. But how do you come back from a pulmonary embolism and you're racing a couple of months later?
Yeah, so I guess the bigger concern around this is like, why did he get the clot? That's kind of the thinking. So when he would have gone in there with whatever symptoms, shortness of breath or chest pain or something like this, then they find a pulmonary embolism. They go, okay, blood clot. Here we are. Then the question is, why does he have a blood clot? Because he shouldn't, right? You don't have a blood clot. I don't have a blood clot. Like, it's not a normal state. So then and there are many things that can cause blood clots. These include clotting issues, cancer is one of the other ones, etc. So you have to rule those things out to make sure that it's not one of those things. Because it is one of those things, right? If it's cancer, you have to sort out the cancer. If it's a clotting disorder, then it's about, can he safely race? Or does he need anticoagulation, so blood thinning? Does he need that long term to prevent further clots? In which case, is it safe for him to race because they fall so often? Right? And we sort of talked about this with Victor Wembanyama as well, and like the issues with him he got a blood clot, and it's like, well, why he has to be anticoagulated for a while? He can't play while that's happening, right? So if they decide and they've done all the workup and they can't find a cause for this, he certainly needs to be on blood thinning medication for a period of time. But after that, they may decide that he can come off of it, which I assume is what's happened here, because it can just be unlucky. They do happen, so it can be unlucky because we are forming and breaking down clots at all times. It's just they're not often a problem. So I assume that they've done a full workup in him, because in you or me, the risk and the benefit is different, because we may say, well, we can't find a cause. We're not going to keep going, but yeah, you probably should be on lifelong anticoagulation. But in him, the risk of bleeding, right? Because when you anticoagulate someone and give them blood thinners, you're balancing the risk of clotting with the risk of bleeding. Or we are always doing that. And in him, the risk of bleeding is high because he does a sport that is conducive to bleeding, right? And so you might say it's not worth him being on blood thinners, particularly if we don't think he's going to clot again, or there's no reason that we can see that he would clot again. So that's kind of the decision making here. Again, not wanting to play doctor on a podcast to anybody, but this is kind of probably what the thinking behind his team is here.
No, that's interesting. I saw this morning, and I wanted to ask you, like, how it can be that he's back like this. I'm happy to see him back. Michael Bling Matthews at the tail end of his career and was still performing really, really well before this. So good to see him back. What are we watching this weekend? Springboks rugby. Springboks are playing the All Blacks.
Yep, be interesting to see. Like tactically, I'm interested to see what Rassi does, what team he rolls out, how he plays, and where they're at in the development cycle. You've been very negative about it, as has most of South Africa. The sky's been falling because they lost a match. I've been a bit more positive about it. So let's see what happens. I'd love to see the Springboks win at Eden Park. That'd be great.
Two of us. It's both of us. I wasn't negative. I was just losing sucks. But yeah, you gave me context for they developing athletes for next year already. They're trialing things. They're working things out. They're working tactics out, and it just takes time to develop athletes, which I love. I love long term planning in pro sports. I'm absolutely here for it. So. Right, should we get out of here? Thank you so much for streaming, downloading the podcast. Please, if you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend. We would really, really appreciate that. David, thanks so much for producing this and putting it together.
You're welcome, mate. I'll talk to you soon.
Catch you on the next one.